Have you ever wondered if someone you trust is actually waiting for you to fail? It is a cold thought, but it is one I had to learn the hard way. Most people look at an old man and they see a sunset. They see a quiet life. They see someone who has stopped paying attention. They think we are just waiting for the clock to run out. My name is Arthur. I am 72 years old. For 40 years, I worked as the chief auditor for a major risk firm. My job was not to be nice. My job was to see the truth. I was the one who looked for the lie in the spreadsheets. I was the one who found the money that people tried to hide. I taught young lawyers how to find fraud. I saw people try to cheat for decades, and yet I almost missed the snake in my own garden. I built my house in a quiet neighborhood 20 years ago. It has a large yard. It has a big oak tree in the back. My wife Eleanor loves that tree. She says it has seen all our history. I spent my life working hard so that Eleanor and I could be comfortable. We did not need much. We just wanted peace. For a long time, we had it. We had Sunday dinners. We had long walks. Then, our daughter brought Greg into our lives. Greg was 35. He was a private consultant. He wore expensive suits. He had a smile that he practiced in the mirror. He was always talking about investments and future planning. At first, I was happy. I thought he was a good man for our daughter. I thought he would take care of our family. That was my first mistake. I let him in too close. I remember the day he started helping. It was a Tuesday. He came over with a cup of coffee. He sat at our kitchen table and looked at our mail. He said, "Arthur, you are paying too much for insurance," he said. "Let me help you organize these papers. You shouldn't have to worry about this at your age." He was very kind. His voice was soft. He moved with a speed that felt helpful. I am a man who likes things in order. I have a filing cabinet in my office that is locked. It has all our important papers. I keep it organized by date and subject. I have done it that way for 30 years. But Greg kept pushing. He wanted to help with the bills. He wanted to help with the property taxes. He said, "I have software that can track all of this. It will save you time." I did not want to be difficult. I wanted to be a good father-in-law. So I said yes. I let him look at the files. I let him sit in my office. I watched him work. He would sit at my desk, typing away. He looked busy. He looked professional. But then, I started to notice things. It was not big things. It was small things. A paperclip in the wrong place. A file drawer that was slightly open. A document that was on the left side of the desk instead of the right. I am an auditor. I see patterns. That is what I do. And the pattern I was seeing was wrong. It was like hearing a bad note in a song. It was quiet, but it was there. I started to wonder what he was doing. I started to wonder why a consultant cared so much about my mortgage papers. He kept asking about the value of the house. He kept asking if I had a will. He kept asking about my wife's health. He did it with a smile, but his eyes were always moving. He was looking for a weakness. He was looking for a way in, and I was the one who opened the door. For the next few weeks, I became a student of human behavior. I watched Greg. I didn't say much. I just watched. I started to notice that whenever I left the room, Greg would lean in close to Eleanor. He would talk to her in a low, gentle voice. It was the voice of a man who cared deeply, but I saw the way Eleanor looked when he wasn't watching. She looked confused. She looked tired. He was planting seeds of doubt in her mind. He would say things like, "Eleanor, don't you remember? We talked about this yesterday." Or, "You really shouldn't try to cook today. You're just not feeling like yourself." He was gaslighting her. It is a cruel, silent way to break someone. He wanted her to believe that her mind was failing. If she believed it, she would lean on him more. If she leaned on him more, he would have control. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and throw him out. But an auditor knows that if you act on anger, you lose. Anger makes you sloppy. You make mistakes. You leave gaps. And Greg was waiting for a gap. He needed me to snap. He needed me to lose my temper so he could call me unstable. So I stayed calm. I played the part of the slow, forgetful old man. I would apologize for things I didn't do. I would look down at the floor and act ashamed. I watched the triumph in his eyes every time I did it. It was like watching a predator slowly walk into a trap, thinking he was the hunter. The behavior grew bolder. He stopped just asking questions. He started bringing people to the house. He would bring a man in a suit who looked like a lawyer, but he wasn't a lawyer. He was a notary. He would bring papers for me to sign. "Just a health update for the insurance company, Arthur," he would say. "Don't bother reading the whole thing. It's all legal talk. I've already checked it for us." He would put a pen in my hand. His eyes would track the pen. He was desperate for that signature. But I have spent 30 years reading contracts. I know how to read the fine print, even when my hand is shaking. I would look at the first page, then flip to the last, then back to the middle. I would make him wait. I would ask slow, rambling questions about the weather or about the local sports team. I could see the sweat forming on his upper lip. He was impatient. That was his weakness. He thought he was fast, but he was just reckless. Then came the proposal about the nursing home. It was a Sunday evening. The house was quiet. Eleanor had gone to bed early. Greg sat at the table with a brochure. It was bright and colorful. It showed a building with a nice garden and happy people. "I've been doing some research," he said. His voice was too calm, too rehearsed. "Eleanor's needs are getting higher. This place, Sunset Gardens, it has a specialized unit. It's very affordable. I can manage the paperwork. I can move everything over to their financial plan. It will protect the house from the government. It will make sure you both have money for the rest of your lives." He was lying. I knew it. I knew that Sunset Gardens was not a specialized unit. It was a place where people went and were forgotten. It was a place that had been investigated for cutting costs on medicine and food. He wanted her there because it was cheap. If he put her there, he could save money. If he saved money, he could take the rest for himself. And he wanted me to sign a document that gave him the power to move her without my constant approval. He wanted me to hand over the keys to my own life. I looked at the brochure. Then I looked at him. I saw the greed hidden behind that practiced smile. It was the same look I had seen on the faces of corporate thieves in courtrooms 20 years ago. They all think they are the smartest person in the room. They all think the rules don't apply to them. He thought he had won. He thought he had finally cornered me. I just smiled and told him I would think about it. "I need to talk to Eleanor," I said. "I can't make this decision alone." He looked annoyed, but he forced himself to smile. "Of course, Arthur. Take your time. Just don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't last forever. Opportunities for him, not for us." That night, after he left, I went into my office. I locked the door. I pulled out my ledger, my real one, the one he didn't know existed. I wrote down the date. I wrote down what he said. I began the work of building my own case. I wasn't going to just stop him. I was going to dismantle him. The next morning, I started my investigation. I had to be very careful. If Greg suspected that I knew his game, he would change his plan. So I kept up the act. I walked slowly. I asked the same questions twice. I let him think I was becoming more confused every day. It was a tiring performance, but it was necessary. When Greg left for work, I went to my office. I locked the door, but not because I was hiding. I locked it so I could work in peace. I needed to see what he had been doing on my computer. Greg was a smart man, but he was careless. He thought that because I was old, I did not understand technology. He did not know that I had helped build the very software he used. I opened his browser history. He had saved passwords. He had stored documents in folders that he thought were hidden. It took me 3 hours to find what I needed. I found emails. They were not to business clients. They were to a company called Evergreen Asset Management. I read the messages. They were cold and calculating. They talked about liquidating assets and power of attorney clauses. They weren't talking about my house as a home. They were talking about it as a product to be sold. They planned to move my wife, sell the house, and take the profit. It was all there. Every step was written down like a recipe for a crime. I needed more proof. I needed to know who these people at Evergreen were. I called an old friend. His name is David. David and I worked together for 15 years at the risk firm. He had retired, but he still kept his contacts. I did not tell him everything, but I told him enough. "David," I said, "I need you to look into a company for me. Just tell me who they are." He did not ask questions. That is the thing about old colleagues. We have a language of trust. 2 days later, he called me back. The news was bad, but it was exactly what I needed. "Arthur," he said, "you are right to be worried. This company is a ghost. They have no office, no real employees. They are a front for a group that steals property from elderly owners. They have done this in 3 other cities." My heart was heavy, but my mind was clear. Greg was not just a greedy son-in-law. He was a professional thief. He was using our family trust. He was using my own daughter's love for her mother to break into our life. I printed everything. I made copies of the emails. I made a timeline of the forged signatures. I organized it all in a binder. I made it so clear that even a child could understand it. I did not want the police to have any doubt. I wanted them to see the whole pattern of the crime. I had all the pieces, but I was missing the trap. I had the evidence, but I needed to wait for the right moment. I needed to let Greg get close enough to the edge of the cliff. I needed him to commit the final step, the step that would make it impossible for him to walk away. I sat in my backyard and looked at the oak tree. I thought about the days ahead. I knew that soon, Greg would come back with the final papers. He would want me to sign away my rights. And when he did, I would be ready. I would finally show him what an auditor does when he has nothing left to lose. The day finally arrived. It was a Thursday. Greg came to the house early. He was whistling. He wore a suit that was too bright for the morning light. He looked at me with that same fake smile. "Are you ready, Arthur?" he asked. "This is the day we fix everything. We can finally relax." I looked at him. I tried to make my eyes look dull and tired. "Yes, Greg," I said. "I am ready." I grabbed my coat. I had the folder in my inner pocket. It was thin, but it held everything he needed to destroy his future. The car ride to the nursing home was quiet. Greg talked about how good the food was at the new place. He talked about how much Eleanor would like the garden. He was playing his part until the end. He didn't know that I was playing a better game. We arrived at the nursing home. It was a large gray building. It felt empty. We walked into the main office. There was a man sitting at the desk. His name was Mr. Halloway. He was the manager of the facility. He stood up when we walked in. He looked at Greg and gave him a nod. They knew each other well. Mr. Harmon, Holloway said. His voice was smooth and practiced. We are glad you are here. We have everything ready. Greg guided me to the chair. He pushed me down gently, like I was a child. He sat across from me. He took a stack of papers out of his bag. It was a big pile. It was dense with legal words. Just sign here, Arthur, he said. He pointed to a line. This gives the facility the right to manage your wife's medical care. And this one here? It moves the house title. Just to protect it, you understand. It's all for the best. I looked at the pen in his hand. I looked at the paper. I felt a strange calm. My heart was not beating fast. I was an auditor. I was back at work. I looked up at Greg. I didn't look tired anymore. My back was straight. My eyes were sharp. I think Greg felt the change. He stopped smiling. His hand with the pen stopped moving. Arthur, he asked, is there a problem? I did not answer him right away. I took my time. I reached into my coat. I pulled out the thin folder. I placed it on the desk. I pushed it slowly toward Mr. Holloway first. I think there is a big problem, I said. My voice was steady. It was not loud. It didn't need to be. I think you should look at this, Mr. Holloway. Holloway looked at me, then at the folder. He opened it. He pulled out the first page. It was the email I had found, the one where Greg talked about liquidating assets. He pulled out the next page. It was the proof that the notary Greg used was not a real notary. It was a fake. Holloway went pale. His hands started to shake. He looked at Greg. The look on his face was pure fear. Greg stood up. He was angry now. The mask was gone. What is this? He shouted. Arthur, you old fool. What are you doing? I didn't flinch. I just looked at him. I had seen angry men before. I had seen bullies in boardrooms. They all act the same when they are caught. I am doing my job, Greg, I said. I am an auditor. I find the things people try to hide. You thought I was lost. You thought I was weak. But I have been watching you for months. I have documented every lie, every signature, every fake phone call. I turned to Holloway. I have already sent copies of these to the state investigators, and I have a copy for the police. They are on their way here right now. Holloway started to sweat. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Greg looked around the room like a trapped animal. He tried to grab the papers from the desk. I stood up. I was faster than he thought. I pulled the papers away. Sit down, Greg, I said. My voice was cold. It was the voice of a man who held the truth. The game is over. He sank into his chair. He looked small. He looked afraid. The arrogance was gone. All that was left was a man who had gambled everything on a lie. And he had lost. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel like celebrating. I just felt like a job was finished. I sat back and waited for the police. I didn't say another word. The silence in the room was heavy. It was the silence of justice. The police arrived 10 minutes later. The flashing blue lights looked strange against the boring beige walls of the nursing home. I watched as they put Greg in handcuffs. He did not look like the confident man who had walked in that morning. He looked pale and small. He kept trying to talk to the officers, telling them I was confused and that this was all a misunderstanding. But the officers just shook their heads. They had my binder. They had the emails, the proof of the forged notary, and the evidence of his debts. It was all there in black and white. Holloway, the manager, did not even try to fight it. He started talking the moment the officers walked in, hoping to save himself. He told them everything Greg had asked him to do. Then my daughter arrived. That was the hardest part. She walked in and saw Greg in the back of the police car. She looked at me. and her eyes were full of tears. She was confused and hurt. For a long time, she had believed his lies. She had thought he was a successful businessman who loved our family. I took her hand and sat her down in the office. I showed her the papers. I did not rush. I walked her through it, slowly and gently, just like I used to do when she was a child. When she saw the truth, the forged signature, the emails planning to take our home, her tears stopped. A look of cold anger took their place. She finally understood. She looked at me and said, "Dad, I am so sorry." That was enough. We didn't need to say anything else. The legal process took several months, but the outcome was certain. Greg was charged with fraud, elder abuse, and identity theft. Because the evidence was so clear and organized, his lawyers could not put up a real fight. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and had to pay back all the money he had stolen from his other victims. The Evergreen Asset Management Company was shut down by the state. The nursing home he picked for us was also investigated and eventually lost its license. It was a long road, but justice was served. I am back at home now. The house is quiet, just the way I like it. I still have my big oak tree in the back, and the garden is as beautiful as ever. My wife Eleanor is safe and happy, and we have the right help now. People who actually care about her. Every time I sit on my back porch, I think about what happened. People often ask me if I am angry. They ask me if I want revenge. The truth is, I don't. I don't feel anger. I feel relief. Revenge is not about hurting the other person. Revenge is about setting things right. It is about restoring the balance. The lesson here is simple. People are often blinded by what they think they see. Greg saw a white-haired old man, and he saw an easy target. He saw a life that was nearing its end, so he thought he could take whatever he wanted. He never stopped to think about what that life was made of. He never considered that I had spent 40 years building a career based on finding the truth. He never looked at the details, and that is why he failed. If you are going to try to walk into someone else's life and take what is theirs, you had better be careful. You never know who you are dealing with. You never know what kind of history, what kind of skills, or what kind of patience a person has. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake age for confusion. Because the people who have lived the longest usually have the best stories, and they have the sharpest eyes for the truth. Life has a way of balancing the books. You just have to be patient enough to let it happen.